Facebook page of CCARPH. Welcome everyone to the sixth session of the Climate Resource Management and Human Development Community Resilience Initiatives in Asia webinar series. Our session today is broadcasted live on the Facebook page of the Coastal Cities at Risk in the Philippines as seen on your screens. Please be guided by the house rules for today's session. All attendees and participants must mute themselves and turn off their video upon entry. The ceremony will be recorded for documentation purposes. For our attendees, please send your questions through the chat box at the bottom of your screen so our team can note this and raise it during our open forum. Please be reminded to address it to the specific speakers you have in mind, and feel free to send your questions as the presentations go along. We begin this webinar with opening remarks from our main convener, Dr. Emma Porio, who is also a professor at the Ateneo de Manila's Department of Sociology and Anthropology and project leader and principal investigator of the Coastal Cities at Risk in the Philippines project. I now welcome Dr. Emma Porio.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the second to the last session of Climate, Resource Management, and Human Development, focused on community resilience initiatives in Asia 2020. In behalf of Father Roberto Yap, our project holder of the Coastal Cities at Risk project, and our president of the Ateneo de Manila University, and our partners at the National Resilience Council and partner universities and LGUs, let me welcome you as well as thank you for coming and sharing your morning with us. And really, it's a privilege for us to be with you this morning and to present to you the young innovators in our partners in humanities and the arts. So this morning is very special because we have basically, I think, the product of an array of innovators. So this morning we will be sharing with Clarissa Mijares, a faculty of the Department of Sociology and Anthropology. She is a humanist anthropologist, and she will share with us how community-based arts are being mobilized to address health security and challenges in Northern Samar, and also in partnership with other universities and anthropology departments. We also have LAURA.CABOCHANONYU.EDU, who has been working with us in with the women in Valenzuela City, the Integrated Community Food Production Program. And then we have Alfred Marasigan, who for me, it's a new discovery and looking at Omehen, or the garden space of a strategy of resistance. So I really would like to thank these young people to allow the CCARPH platform to showcase and illustrate their talents and charisma in engaging the community partners, and also in trying to address the issues of community resilience on the ground. So thank you also to the Asian Peacebuilders scholars and our partners. I would like to say that, this webinar series has been very much successful, I would say, because of the generosity of our stakeholders and partners in community resilience. So thank you very much. I would like also, before I close that, I'd like to thank Canoli and Flora and Pablo Tao of the Buklod Tao. Canoli was with us yesterday, sharing his experiences, and also the Integrated Community Food Production of Valenzuela and Disciplina Bignay. Lisa Labsan and April Odto, Joy Odto was with us also yesterday. So thank you very much to Doc Basil and Marivic Dumdum and Priscilla's group. So thank you very much and welcome. And let's now begin with all this array of ideas and engagements and initiatives. Thank you, Ina. Thank you all.
Thank you very much, Dr. Porio. Now we officially begin our webinar by calling our first guest speaker, Ms. Clarissa Mijares, who will discuss Baon sa Pagbangon, Preparation for Adaptive Resilience, Resources for Community-Based Arts, Engagement for Resilience and Sustainability. Ms. Mijares is the program manager of the Office of University and Global Relations and faculty at the Department of Sociology and Anthropology, Ateneo de Manila University. Let us now welcome Ms. Clarissa Mijares.
Hello, good morning, everyone. I am especially delighted to interact with you this
Malu,
morning
I'm on the other line, huh?
in this manner, especially for APS 13 who know me as their program coordinator. So this is really something that I am honored to have had the opportunity of sharing with you the things that I do outside of the APS or the Asian Peacebuilder Scholarship Program. Okay, allow me to talk you through what I'm preparing for CCARPH. So, can everybody see my screen? Yes?
Yes.
All right. So I am working out a module for adaptive resilience for communities, and I'm calling this module set as Baon sa Pagbangon, preparations for adaptive resilience and resources for community-based arts engagement for resilience and sustainability. Okay.
This morning, Tony, I have the young artists. They're doing all their.
All right. And I am going by the definition of resilience as the capacity to survive or thrive despite adverse experiences. And this is Rutter's definition of resilience. But with all that we are doing for CCARPH and the other projects that I have been engaged with, I also use the idea of community resilience as an integral capacity of individual resilience, which is emergent and through well-networked and connected communities. Okay, so it's not just a person's ability, but his immediate support and environment that allows this resilience adaptability to come through. Okay. For CCARPH, we are working with the SDGs 11 and 13 specifically. And we are doing so through the inclusion of a wide range of scholarly and artistic expertise. So we're going beyond disciplinary boundaries of environment and climate studies and disaster risk management, and looking at what other fields could be engaged in generating information and maybe co-producing knowledge from the ground. So I guess my very um, inclusion in this project is because of my dance arts. So some of you know of my dance background, and I have been fortunate to have been given the opportunity to explore the possibilities of movement in uh, engaging communities. So dancing with communities to generate information is something that has been a big part of my life as of late. Okay. So, arts based community engagement encourages knowledge co production that draws from the everyday experiences of community members and their creative abilities to achieve individual and collective goals. This project that I am working on with Dr. Porio will provide resources for arts based community engagement that can be referred to and adjusted according to need. So, what we're looking at is developing community based definitions of community risks and resilience. So, um, uh, through ethical research, we want to find out from the people themselves what they consider to be risks, what they consider to be disasters. And we want the definition to emerge from their own experiences and not to impose these on them. And then from our collected data, we want to have a better informed community-based plans for disaster risk action and sustainable communities. Right? Okay. So many of you, especially maybe APS 13, would say, where is all of this coming from? Where is ISA all of a sudden coming from? I've been doing this kind of work and research with the Department of Sociology and Anthropology as faculty member and also as researcher in various projects. So between 2017 and 2020, I've actually done community-based engagement on primary care and also for persons with disabilities, um, inclusive learning spaces. So, Baon sa Pagbangon, this module series that I'm working on for CCARPH is actually inspired by one of the works that we did with Kiel University from the United Kingdom. And through that project, the project is called SOLAS, or Stories of Public Health Through Community-Based Arts Engagements. Um, we are able to find out about cultural animation. Okay, so cultural animation is a participatory arts-based research methodology that utilizes theater techniques. And it was developed by Mihaela Kiliman and Sue Moffat. Sue Moffat is the director of New Vic Theatre or New Victoria Theatre in Stoke, the United Kingdom. And they they developed this idea of participatory research that engages community members and invited them to participate in a series of games and guided creative pursuits that will draw from risk-related experiences. So you can actually see some of these activities in on this slide. So we mounted cultural animation exercises for our community in Northern Samar to find out their ideas about primary health and primary care. So how do they access healthcare? How do um, uh, community members in rural Philippines, what are the care they are able to access and who do they run to in instances of medical emergencies? What do they consider to be medical emergencies? So it was SOLAS was a 2-year long project that we were engaged in with Kiel University. And one of the projects, many projects that we were able to develop through SOLAS was a consolidation of their ideas, the community's ideas about health and wellness through a curated movement performance. So I'm going to be showing you a snippet of the performance that we were able to put together. So let me just stop sharing the PowerPoint and show you. Okay. The So this is, I'm directing you now to the SOLAS website. Are you able to see the SOLAS website? Yes. Okay, so this is our SOLAS website, and on the website, you can see the one of the pages, one of the posts is about the SOLAS dance project. So at the very beginning of our research, we did a word bank activity with the community members, asking them their ideas about.
Isa, we cannot see the screen you share.
Oh wait, all
Yeah.
right, thank you for letting me
Thank
know.
you. Yeah.
Okay, so this one, is that better?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, now we can
Now you
see.
see, now you see. So this is the SOLAS website, which I invite everyone to take a look at, so you can find out more about our research and what we came up with. So at the very beginning of our research in Northern Samar, um, uh, we did a word bank activity where we just had people list, community partners just listed their ideas about what is considered healthy, what do they think they needed to do in order to become healthy. So they listed all of that in their local language. So in Waray, in Northern Samar, they speak in Waray, and uh, we later on put together the words and using the local dance. We developed movement sequences with the youth, and turned it into a full-length contemporary dance performance. So the video that you will see now is, of course, a recorded performance where everyone was in costume, or at least in a more curated visual and costumes. Okay, so ayan, you will see them. They are dancing to recorded words in Waray. So the word bank, the listed words, we had them recorded. So we had the Waray record their ideas about health, and then we sound engineered their most popular folk music that also has a related folk dance called the kuratsa. Kuratsa. Okay, so if some of you maybe have um, Visayan links, okay, kuratsa is a very popular dance among the Visayans, especially among the Waray. So this is something, the kuratsa is something that they perform all the time during fiestas, during gatherings. They do this during weddings. So the folk tune is very familiar to the Waray. So I'll show you a snippet of the performance. Kumain ng tama. Maayos na pagkain. Maligo araw mas ng mga katawan. Mag-exercise. Masuyayin. Walang sakit. Malinis ang katawan. Healthy. Malinis na paligid. So what you are hearing are actual words from the word bank that we were able to put together. Kumain ng mga masustansyang pagkain. Mali, laging magpapasyente sa doktor. Alfred, iwasan kumain ng mga So if you look closely at the tables that we used as props, we had the actual paper that the community participants wrote on. We had them printed on large stickers, and those were stuck on the tables, and that is where most of the performances were anchored.
Regular checkup.
All right. So, okay, so you can actually take a look at that dance video and the Solace website on your own time. But yes, so that is something that we did for the Solace project. So merging ideas about primary care, about health and wellness, and putting it together in a very kinesthetic activity, which is dance. And so, okay, I'll bring you back to um, my slides. So all of those, the very foundation of that dance performance were based on the word bank that we had because of a cultural animation exercise. So if just to give you a context, we Mihaela Kilimen and Sue Moffat just had a one-day session on cultural animation with with the community partners. And in that one-day um, set of exercises, we were able to generate so much information, and even the most sensitive information about even sexual health. You could really find out how arts and providing safe spaces through the arts can really help you in gathering more information about your community and your research collaborators, and uh, and I hope to use the same kind of expressive arts and other creative ethnographic methodologies with our community in with Buklod Tao. Okay, right. So, Baon sa Pagbangon rests on the idea that understanding how communities perceive crisis and crisis management is crucial in developing robust evidence that will inform effective disaster risk management and mitigation programs. I have always believed that we should really go to the ground and go to the field to find out what is happening, how people are experiencing these risks, in order to provide better understanding and maybe provide the necessary support, or even at all understand that they are able to provide these for themselves. Okay, so baon is a Filipino word or Filipino Tagalog that commonly refers to supplies, food, token items that one brings along on a journey. APS 13 would know very well what baon is, especially perhaps the Filipinos. Baon is when you went from Manila to Costa Rica to San Jose, bringing with you food items that you will miss from home. Okay, perhaps some of you brought packets of sinigang mix. Maybe some of you brought coffee. Yeah, so I know that some of you even had family members send over food items to Manila before you flew off to Costa Rica. So this project recognizes that community members carry with them a wealth of experiences and information regarding risk management, and that we are learning from their lived experiences. So community members are not passive collaborators, but instead they bring with them information. They bring with them experiences from the past, and maybe even foresight of future calamities, and they know what to do. And um, uh, in some cases, what we really need to do is compile all those ideas together, and uh, maybe make better sense of those information with the community partners. So our research collaborators for this project, Baon sa Pagbangon, are members of the youth of Buklod Tao, which is a people's organization in Barangay Banaba, San Mateo, Rizal. And Buklod Tao is a nonprofit organization that endeavors to have a free, peaceful, and progressive community that is able to take care of themselves during a disaster. I'm sharing this quotation with you because this is exactly how they define their community. Okay, they are not waiting on people to help them. They know that they can help themselves. And that is something that I think has to be recognized and has to be valued by all of us and by many other organizations, which I feel have a very messianic sense about what they do. So, yeah, we're not out there to save them. They can very much do that for themselves. Okay. Allow me to share with you. I'm on to my last two slides. Allow me to share with you the first part of the module that I will be running with Buklod Tao this Sunday. So the first activity that we will be doing with them is a game. So uh, play is something that is very powerful, and we can learn very much from children playing, from how they feel like when they are playing games. And so we are going to be playing a game called Bahay Baboy Bagyo, but we will rename it to Bahay Bata Bagyo. And I think that this is such an appropriate game to play, especially since Banaba, San Mateo, Rizal is often plagued by typhoons and flooding. And after the game, we will have a facilitated sharing with the youth leaders, and processing the ideas of the young children playing the game, and maybe relating it to their actual experiences of being in the middle of an actual typhoon. And then we will record their responses for analysis. And for that specific part of the module, I will be using the 5 key components of resilience among young people by Hart and Blanco. And we will be using, because we're working with children, so we also have to make sure that our materials are adapted to our audiences. So I will be preparing illustrations of the 5 key components of resilience, which are basics, belonging, learning, and coping, and core self, or the noble self. And I'm excited to see how it goes and how it brings us forward to the next part of the modules. So thank you for hearing me out today, and thank you for listening about our experiences in SOLAS and the draft of my module development for CCARPH for Baon sa Pagbangon. Thank you everyone and have a good morning.
Thank you very much, Ms. Mijares, for that very inspiring presentation. I'm really looking forward to later's open forum to learn more about the program. Now I welcome our next speaker who will talk about the community-based arts as a vehicle for social change and enhancing resilience initiative. Ms. Laura.CABOCHAN is an adjunct lecturer at the Department of Fine Arts of Ateneo de Manila University and a PhD candidate in educational theater at the New York University. Let us now welcome Ms. Laura.CABOCHAN.
All right. So before I begin, is it all right if people switch to their gallery view? I'd much prefer it if everyone could see everyone, even if it's just like rectangles. There we go. So hopefully we're on gallery view. Good morning, everyone. It's really nice to share this morning with all of you, and I hope that you're all doing okay. So what we're going to do first, before we jump into me talking about community-based arts, is I guess it would be good to experience at least a taste of it, a bit of it. And what we're going to do is we're going to do a very low stakes. It's a low stakes activity. If you don't want to show your face, it's perfectly all right. We're going to play a game called Get the Party Going. And how does Get the Party Going work? So if you look at your Zoom screen, you could see that you have reactions there. And one of those reactions is this party popper. So I'm going to say the phrase, get the party going, and I'm going to follow it with another expression. So for example, get the party going if you have a pet. And if you have a pet, if you want to share the fact that you have a pet, press the party popper. And then ideally, we should all see on the screen the people who do have a pet. And it's just a very gentle way, a very low stakes way of realizing what our similarities are with people in the room and maybe our differences, what our differences are also with people in the room. So let's give this a try. All right, get the party going if you've already had breakfast. Get the party going if you've already had breakfast. Ooh, exciting. Alfred. All right. Let's try the next one. Get the party going if you listen to Korean pop. Get the party going if you listen to Korean pop. No shame, no shame. Everyone's accepted here. Nice. All right. Get the party going if your favorite color is blue. Get the party going if your favorite color is blue. So what usually happens in this activity is that after the facilitator gets it started, the facilitator then opens up the opportunity to other people in the room to say, get the party going, and then add a phrase. So is there any volunteer who wants to give it a try? Get the party going, and then like maybe you're curious about your fellow people here, your fellow participants here in the room. So you could use this as an opportunity to find things out about them. Anyone? Any takers? All right, you could think about it. I'll do one last, and then I'll open the opportunity again. Get the party going if you like Hawaiian pizza. So that means pizza with pineapples in it. Get the party going if you like Hawaiian pizza. Oh, I see Joy reacting very violently. No. All right. So before I go to my presentation proper, one last any takers who want to try it, get the party going, and then just see. Or if you want to type it, you could type it and then I'll say it for you. Go, Johnson. Was that a sign of interest?
Go, John. I think John can very
Sure, I would love to. So get the
Go.
party going. If you are looking forward to lunch, me,
All right.
because
Thank
of
you,
breakfast.
Johnson. BTS for breakfast. How do we interpret that? Okay, anyway, all right. So I'll start sharing my presentation now. Okay, here we go. Present. All right. Let me just fix my screen so that I could see at least majority of you. There we go. So the title of this presentation is Community-Based Arts as a Vehicle for Social Change and Enhancing Resilience Initiatives. For this particular presentation, I'm going to be focusing on more theory. I'll be showing examples, but I also want to talk about like the theoretical framework that community-based arts is following, or rather the research traditions that it shares with other practices. So a while ago, we just played the game, Get the Party Going. This is adapted to Zoom, but if you're doing it in like in-person circumstances, what we usually use is cross the room. So people actually use their bodies and signify physically what they share and what they don't share with people in the room. And with community-based arts, what we're really going to think about and what it offers is how it touches on the social imagination. So educator Herbert Cole, and I mistyped his name there, I'll fix that later on so that I could send the PDF to you folks, is without the encouragement of the social imagination, of freedom to imagine the world being other than it is, we are left without hope for society as a whole. So community-based arts, because it touches on the imagination and talks about possibilities and even the now and the past, it offers a way of, I'll talk about this later, naming the world and changing the world together, borrowing from the tradition of critical pedagogy of Paulo Freire. I'll get into this more in a while. Community-based arts has a lot of names, and some of you might be already doing it or might have already been exposed to it. So there's community-based arts. There is also community-led arts, which is there's a slightly bigger emphasis on the community being the drivers of the activity of the project that they're doing. There's community cultural development. A while ago, Isa talked about cultural animation. It's similar with community animation. There's social practice art. Right now in the United States, creative placemaking is the more used term for it. In the Philippines, it's psychosocial intervention is what I've noticed. PETA, the Philippine Educational Theater Association, uses this term a lot, psychosocial intervention. And what they do is community-based arts, but usually they go into areas, into communities that are marginalized or affected by disasters such as typhoons, earthquakes, and the like. And I have noticed, so I interned in Japan for one semester for an independent study. And so I interviewed people there. I was asking about community-based arts, local art making projects within communities. And the term they used, based on one artist who I spoke to, Ishigami Natsuki, she said that the term they use in Japan, or at least the term used by the Tokyo Art Research Lab, is art project. So these are just the terms that the field uses. You might have already encountered them one way or another. So it's not new. So what are the roots of community-based arts? Community-based arts shares roots with critical pedagogy, which is apparent in the practice of participatory action research, where the relationship between the researchers and the facilitators are a horizontal one, where the teacher is the student is the teacher, and vice versa. And together as a collective, they name the world, they describe the world that they're living in together, and they dialogue with one another to try to see like what changes, what do we want to happen to this world, to this environment that we live in. And it also shares roots with arts-based research, which recognizes the different places where knowledge can be found. Usually in the research world, there's such an emphasis put on quantitative analysis. And when it comes to qualitative, it's a lot of words, a lot of words. But in arts-based research, it also recognizes the knowledge that is found within body movement, within metaphor, within imagery, within poetic language. It recognizes that these are valid sources of knowledge as well. And the people who are making them, not local knowledge, art, people who experience, who are on the field, on the ground, artists, like they are valid sources of knowledge as well. So this this list, so spark public demand, build community capacity and agency, bridge scales, enrich and activate the built environment, nurture sustainable economies. This all comes from a research, a field scan done by Helicon Collaborative in the United States. So they looked at different art projects, creative placemaking projects that were about the environment and energy all over the United States. And they noticed the following trend, that communities that do community-based arts can spark public demand. It builds public interest. It builds community capacity and agency. The communities find themselves capable, find themselves active in doing the work, and they're the ones who lead the work, who guide the work, versus it being an artist-led project or a researcher-led project. It bridges scales. What does this mean? It bridges scales in a way that if I were, for instance, we do it in Quezon City, we do a community-based project in Quezon City, we're able, because it's done through art, we're able to bridge it to larger issues, to larger areas. Like what I'm experiencing in Quezon City might be a wider thing that's being experienced in the entire Philippines. And it's also able to bridge different interests. Like it's not just art, it's also perhaps science, it's also perhaps math. It can enrich and activate the built environment, meaning the physical structures carry suddenly a different life more than just being a physical structure. It is now laden with history. It is now laden with metaphor and meaning through the things that are being done by the community on, with and on the environment. And it can nurture sustainable economies. It makes us think or be more critical and be more conscious about what are the materials we use, what are the things we need, because the community is now in dialogue together. All right, so I'll be sharing some examples of community-based arts projects that I've done. I have to admit I haven't done a lot yet around the environment, around disaster risk reduction. So, but I will be talking about like research done on the ground with communities and not just by artists. So the one on the left that you're seeing was done in Queens, New York, in the area called Woodside and Jackson Heights, and it's called Little Manila. So the Filipinos who lived in that area, some of them, the artists gathered together, picked points in Woodside, and created a walking tour, introducing people to Filipino culture, Filipino history, and even the intersections. Because in that area, there are also other ethnicities such as Hispanic, Indian, and so we also talked about the intersections of our cultures with other cultures. And on the right, the Zoom, the Zoom screenshot that you could see is recently with a foundation called Unilab. We conducted a storytelling workshop with public school teachers, which celebrated um, the things that they're doing, one, for their students during the pandemic, and celebrated their resilience, celebrated their capacity to overcome all the challenges that people, everyone all over the world are doing right now with online distance learning. So these are some pictures from gallivanting, the walking tour in Little Manila. And one of the more significant things that I remember that happened during this project was we were performing finally. It was the final part of the performance in a community square. And so there were a lot of people from all ethnicities were gathering, were walking around, weren't even interested. And there was, I think they were a couple of young men of African American descent. So while people were dancing the singkil, uh, these two young men suddenly stopped, and I overheard them saying like stop man, look, there's culture going on right now. We have to watch. And this touches on the sparks public interest, suddenly opens up opportunities for dialogue between two very possibly two very different cultures. And this one, a very bad screenshot of the video is, and I'll link this later on. So the storytelling workshop led to a video where the teachers shared their stories because they were able to refine it through the workshop and shared it publicly with the world, or specifically with their own communities, about what they're going through and how they honor each other as teachers and how they should hang on and just move onward. So, in terms of disaster risk reduction, one of the most active groups really is the Philippine Educational Theater Association. And this person, Vic Altiche, writes, the arts help not only in risk reduction education, but also psychosocial processing and support. Attendees learn how to be more resourceful and responsive in the face of a hazardous situation. And this is an example in the United States called the water bar. So again, this is connected to the environment, where artists and people from the community just gather. They create this pop-up water bar where they don't serve alcoholic drinks, they just serve water in the community. And when anyone arrives to the bar, they hold a conversation about water and the importance of it in their community and what it means to them. So as Dr. Porio has said, we're hoping to have a community-based arts project with the urban farmers, in particular the women of Disciplina Bignay in Valenzuela City. This isn't only to celebrate the work that they're doing with the land, on the land, but it's also in particular with the women to to sort of celebrate also their agency, the leadership that they're showing in their own community, because they're really running, in a way, running the show, making the farm grow and really nurturing the farm. But of course, given now that we're in the middle of a pandemic, because what was happening was we were supposed to start the project in March. So we were getting to know each other in March. But what happened then was, so this was towards early March, mid-March, and then about 2 days after our first meeting, the pandemic hit, or rather the lockdown happened. So things sort of went something like that. And then, so now we're slowly restarting again, because there are a lot of considerations that have to be, there are a lot of things that have to be taken into consideration when we're now working online, when we're working in the midst of a pandemic. So we have to think about partnership. What kind of partnership will this be? What is our trust level? Me as the artist and the women of Disciplina Bignay, how well do they know me? Am I coming in as quote unquote, to quote Prairie, as a cultural invader? If I just suddenly jump in and start doing things with them? Or is there a way that we can nurture it? It's going to be a very slow project, but we're going to nurture it and build that trust first and build that community feeling amongst ourselves. What type of collaboration is it? Will they be making the material? Will they be sharing? Will they be sharing, for instance, will they be sharing their stories to me? And as an artist, I'll be making a script that they could perform? Or will they be creating and writing the play themselves? If this was going to be a theatrical project. Also, in terms, when it comes to type of collaboration, is it going to be an online collaboration, or will it require me to go to them with all the anti-COVID paraphernalia that I have to wear? So those things have to be taken into consideration. Also, project duration, how long will this project be? Because for instance, if you're following a grant, for instance, then maybe you only have a month or 2 months to go about your project. Then what's feasible? So you also have to adjust with that. How much time can people devote to the project? Like the women, the urban farmers of Disciplina Bignay are very busy because they're taking care of the farm. Parents, or rather caretakers of young people during this time of pandemic really have a lot in their hands because they're also the teachers in a way of their young people inside their own homes. So how much time can they really devote to the project? What are their access to tools? Can they actually access Zoom? Do they have good internet? What are their interests? Do they actually want to make theater? Because maybe they don't want to make theater. Maybe they want to make poetry. Maybe they want to draw. So really, a lot of this boils down to being able to sit down and talk with the partners and really get to know each other. And it takes time. Like it's one of those things that really can't be rushed. Well, yes, there. So at the moment, at the beginning, we were really thinking about either doing an ethno-drama wherein they share their stories, we create a script out of it, and then they perform it themselves, if that was their interest. So our heads were there. Or maybe even if it was just like times of fellowship, because they have expressed a lot of joy about singing, about dancing together while they're working on the farm. They would play music. But again, because we are in these circumstances, right now we're also entertaining that maybe photo voice would be something that might interest them. They have their smartphones, and this is one of the things that we have to check. Like, do they have smartphones that are capable of taking pictures? What is within their capacity? So we're also thinking of journaling, that maybe we can give them notebooks that they could either write or draw on, like whichever they're more comfortable with. And then after a particular duration of time, we collect them and then we process them together. So there are a lot of possibilities there that we're hoping to discover with the ladies in Bignay. So this is my last slide. Because the thing is, one of the things about community-based arts, it's very exciting. And sometimes a lot of people think about it in terms of what's the impact, what's the outcome in very concrete terms. But it's also good to have the attitude when we're thinking about the arts is that it's process, it's the affect, it's experience, that it's not necessarily always about the outcome. Because especially in the times that we're living now, and please allow me to really quote this one because I feel very strongly about it. It's joy, delight. It's a bunker in these settings, protecting people from the worst of the situation so that they may come back safely into a world that they still desire to change. This, too, is a form of resistance that is too rarely acknowledged or taken seriously. So I think as we move forward and think about things that how do we nurture resilience? How do we continue to push for resilience? I think joy, delight, things that may seem frivolous in an academic setting or even in some activist settings, like these are things that we should take seriously as well, because these are things that fuel us, that give meaning to why we continue to go on. So if you'd like to talk more about this, please don't hesitate to email me. I care very much about this subject, and I like thinking about projects. It brings me a lot of joy. So please don't hesitate to message me about it, and I'll send the PDF of this so that you could check some of these resources out. These are some of the things that I quoted, some of the things I used in my presentation. And thank you very much for for spending this 20 minutes with me. Sorry, Alfred. I will now pass the baton to you.
Thank you very much, Laura, for that. Let me introduce our next speaker, Mr. Alfred Marasigan, an instructor at the Department of Fine Arts at Ateneo de Manila University. And he'll be giving a presentation on Omehen, the Garden as Chronicle and Strategy of Resilience. So let's welcome Mr. Alfred Marasigan.
Hi, everyone. All right. So I think before we begin, I would also just like to tell you a little bit more about me. So my name is Alfred, and I've been teaching with the Fine Arts Department for 5 years. And I think my background is mostly in contemporary visual art. So I exhibit a lot. I've also been a Norwegian Council of the Arts grantee for newly graduated students. And I think a lot of my work is also informed by, in a way, my mobility and my travels, and trying to mediate between locales and situations. So I think I also work with performance, with video installation, with time-based media mostly. So there. And I'm gonna share screen now. I think before I completely share or introduce the project, I'd like to invite everyone to think of Omehen, or our project, as something that is a small segment or a small part in the larger struggle of the Lumad Bakwit people from southern Philippines. So it's an art project, but it's not something. It only intersected with their ongoing struggle, and for me as an artist, it opens up a lot of perspectives that might be overlooked if we only work through sustainability, through education, and through community work in just one perspective, right? So here is I have a filter because garden. So I think, and also for me, much of the project, I think when I start talking about the whole project, I always tell people that it is either a very short story or a very, very long story. So I'll try to meet you all halfway and make it a concise but also nuanced story. So basically, it's just a garden. It's a simple garden. It's nothing. It's not like avant-garde or anything like that. It's a simple garden. Vegetables grow, you eat the vegetables. But I think how we approach this project is that I myself am very curious about a lot of questions, and I think questions, confusion, and ambiguity is something that helps fuel the project, even if in other disciplines or in different cases we see them as detriments or like obstacles in the way that we conduct projects. So most of my questions as a teacher, as a Filipino, as an artist, how can we decolonize knowledge? How can we, what does health mean now? Or why is learning uneven and hierarchical? And how can we do our part in climate crisis compared to the way that the global north does it? Is there a way that we can reimagine sustainability? Is it really about the future? Is time really about posterity and like preserving things for an unseen, imagined like future world? So those are like the kinds. What do solidarity mean across the whole Philippine archipelago, across communities within a small city or just within a small classroom? So these questions are possibly a lot, but just to keep it anchored, it's just a garden. So, but yeah, so to me, that's how like three fellow co-faculties and artists in our fine arts department in Ateneo with Carl Castro, who is a designer and a visual artist, and Gilan Luarca, who is a playwright. Okay. And then And then, so it's the three, we initiated this, we feel that we are initiators, but we are not like any, yeah, we just facilitated the whole project, but our main collaborators is the Lumad Bakwit students from the southern Philippines, and they have somehow sought refuge in the capital from mostly Mindanao. They are a collective group of distinct indigenous people who experience a lot of state-sponsored killings, a lot of land grabbing, and a lot of precarity, especially in education. So these students people that we met are students, like elementary school students up to college students who fled to the capital and sought sanctuary in many universities. So education becomes this sort of space where they can find safety when they are threatened in their hometowns. So it's not just that the situation is very complex, but it also touches a lot on who are the people who are most affected by climate crisis that we feel that we need to problematize. So Omehen sought to create a space with them so that we can have a fair exchange of each other's stories. So Omehen means harvest in the Manobo Talaingod language, and these are actually our collaborators. We are asking them to look for a good space within campus where we can conduct the garden. Because I mean, I'm a city person. I'm a Tagalog. So I don't know much about. I'm not a nature person. So I feel that it's good that in the arts we are able to acknowledge our shortcomings as well. Like Laura said in her presentation, it's not always about impact. And I'm happy that somehow this project turns out the way that I'll show you more. So yeah, so it is also somehow a proposed or a possible way of conducting protests. So the project was conceived at the time of a lot. I mean, it's not just our political unrest. I see it in globally, but we wanted to think of other ways to achieve solidarity that are local and a little bit more doable, because sometimes it's how much I envy the very big movements in other parts of the world where people really go out and are able to fight for what they need. But for at least in Manila, there are small movements, but these are not to be discounted, especially the ones where the Bakwit Lumad students are themselves going out to speak about their plight. So we thought the garden would be something that would touch on how can health be how can nourishment be resistance or protest, how can vegetables grow amidst like global unrest and climate crisis. So there. So the garden is composed of 4 main crops, mainly kangkong, sitaw or string beans, okra, and ampalaya or bitter gourd. So what is interesting somehow to me is that we have a elementary school kids learn it very early, like the bahay kubo, which is a mnemonic for vegetables that you can plant and eat so that it can promote healthy living. But the three of the 4 vegetables that our collaborators, the Lumad Bakwit students, chose aren't in the national narrative of like what is healthy. So it is important to see even the cracks in the way that national stories are told through songs or through art itself. And in addition to that, when I said that I work with time-based media, I wanted to somehow marry magic in a way with social realities. Like these aren't fiction. These are things that are real but somehow are difficult for global north or possibly Western perspectives to put together. So in a way, I attempted to live stream one of the land clearing rituals of the Lumad Bakwit students, and it was supposedly to go for the whole duration of the garden, but then we weren't able to because of technical and installation difficulties. It was impossible to have because of internet also, which will figure in like the pandemic aspect. But I was able to capture some parts of the land clearing ritual. And what's important for me to see here is that there is an acknowledgement of our interrelatedness with the environment, and we are able to learn from indigenous people on how to relate. So indigeneity and climate crisis are very much intertwined, and when you put it in the context of education, I mean, for even me as a teacher and an artist, I would like to think I'm very open-minded, but somehow the killing of the chicken was still arresting for me, and it opened up a lot of conversations among us within the class about how we get our food. The chicken is fairly common to breed, but then to see it in a setting, in a classroom experimental project garden setting, was arresting, and emotions figure into the way that this project becomes rich with insight. So this is also like a divination object that they brought. So when the blood of the chicken lands on the leaves, they know or try to predict how the garden will turn out. So it said that it will have some insects, which happened. And this also acknowledges that we are like humans are not the prime like stewards of anything, because there are unseen forces like weather or like spirits. So I like how they said that they also enchanted the tools that we were gonna use so that we won't get hurt when preparing the land for the garden. So yeah, like objects are also included in the way that that we can access the garden. And also, yeah, so we harvested it, and then during the pandemic, it kind of didn't. The garden actually ended up being monitored remotely. So the digital aspect of like remote monitoring a garden came into play. So these are a lot of there's also the protests. So in one space, in a very simple like space, we are able to tackle these issues, especially when I retell the story. So there's the junk terror law, Al-Qaeda, which is another group that is belongs to the Lumad people. And then we are able to, I brought some of the objects that we 3D printed. We knew that the garden will not be forever. So at the very least, there is a monument of like the way that we harvested some of them. We didn't even get to harvest most of them because of the pandemic already. So we tried to memorialize not just the garden, but also the struggle of sustenance and nourishment. So, I mean, there was a storm and the garden ended up being destroyed, and now it's just being eaten by the wilderness within the urban setting. So the temporality and the limits of a project are sometimes bad, but we can learn from them because it shows that art is not perfect, and we are able to understand more what makes something work or not work. In the end, the happy thing is that while they are still living in a different university, they have harvested their own like crops that they planted in a different university and not within the grounds of our project. But somehow we have been in contact with them, and they were happy to somehow pass on the idea of sustaining themselves in where they live in UP Diliman, which is like quite close, and it was a very bountiful harvest compared to like inedible vegetables that are plastic vegetables in art. So thank you so much, and I hope that you're able to understand that in the humanities, even if there aren't clear-cut answers to the process, even if it's not easy or exact or essential in the way that people conventionally think projects should be, it makes us ask questions that push us to find the most authentic answers, not just for ourselves, but also for our community. So thank you so much. Here are our collaborators. We consider the vegetables our collaborators as well. The Jesuits who were in the campus who watered for us, a lot of the maintenance staff who watered remotely also for us and sent us reports on Facebook. We were checking in on them as well. And there. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alfred, for that presentation. So in solidarity with that, I also used your filter here right now on Zoom. Okay, so we now move to the open forum portion of our webinar, and we do highly encourage the Asian Peacebuilders scholars to take part and send their questions for our guest speakers.
Ina,
Yes, Dokam.
I would like, remember our first meeting with Alfred, and after reading his concept paper, Alfred, can you elaborate on the concept of Omehen and, the connectedness of the climate, the environment, and the cosmos, and the university as a knowledge-producing center and mobilizer? Thank you.
Yeah, Omehen, somehow, actually one of our initial inspiration for Omehen or the harvest of the garden is a text by Ambrosio about the Balatic. So we wanted to think of, is there a way that we can inhabit different cosmologies compared to this one? It's not just like a simple scientific idea, but maybe there are stories that we can inhabit so that we can try to solve this ongoing problem that we have. And within school, we wanted to see how indigenous knowledge could be helpful to unfreeze the way or the ideas that we teach each other and learn from each other. So this like very nebulous outdoor garden community project video art exhibit somehow I feel can produce those kinds of insights that challenge the idea even of time, which is something that we think is immutable when it's not really. Like there is chronos and kairos, and I learned this a lot from working with time-based media. So time zones are different. The GMT is like colonial. So all of these things are something that we sought to address with like something local and something that especially our Lumad Bakwit schools collaborators understand, which are like which in the way that they studied agriculture in the southern Philippines, which is like a few theory, and then they go out to the field to plant and learn hands-on. So that is something that we don't have much in the city because there isn't land, and you always have to ask permission for someone. So that's the spirit of like Omehen or harvesting.
Okay. Thank you, Albert. Ina, can you please take over in terms of facilitating with? I think the three young innovators have given us plenty of, I would say, ideas. Also, I feel that the three young artists have, energized us, dynamized, and put us connected to our own dreams and possibilities. So, Ina, I hope the young peace builders realize how precious and privileged we are in this space. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc Emma. We have a first question here coming from Aya Fujimoto of the Asian Peacebuilders Scholars. Aya, would you like to pose your question now?
Yes. Thank you so much for such an inspiring all presentations. I have a question, especially to Isa. It's several simple questions on methodology. So as you mentioned, your community-based art project through dance. I have a question. First question is like, what is your target populations on your project? And is it like for youth or women or elderly people or the community as a whole? That's my first question. And the second question is related to the first question. How do you, gather those people from the community? And the last question is, how do you assess the results? I understood as Miss Laura said, it's more like, not only outcome or solutions, but the process is more important, I understood. But I would appreciate if you could elaborate more on the evaluation part. Thank you so much, Isa.
All right, thank you, Aya. For the Solas project with the provincial government of Northern Samar, the population target in how you referred to that, we actually engaged six barangays or six villages. In a way, it's a bigger project. I would say it's a medium-sized project, because we had to engage 60 village members per barangay or per village. So you could imagine how we had to go through selecting participants. But in terms of participation, for ethical purposes, and also because it was a medical research in a sense, because we were asking about primary care and wellness, um, uh, for ethical purposes, we had a cap of only 18 and above. So uh for the younger people, to engage younger people, we had to get permits to engage them. So we also had to deal with the social workers per barangay every time we would hold workshops and activities with the community. But in many ways as well, we had a blanket research permit because of ethnography and the requirements of ethnography that we had to immerse in the communities. So this was a 2-year long project. So it allowed us to have a relationship with our community partners. But before that, we were also very lucky because Ateneo already has a standing partnership with Northern Samar. So even before our research came in, we had partners from the Ateneo Medical School, the school ASMPH, was also a partner of the SOLAS project. There were already doctors who graduated from ASMPH who were working in the provincial hospital and in the municipal hospitals. And their position in the communities allowed for us to, in a sense, enter the community in a very non-intrusive manner, because the doctors, even before, so we came in step by step. It wasn't like the whole group, the entire research group went it all in one go. So we did several scoping trips So the project officially launched in November of 2017, but we started scoping the communities that we were to work with the year before. So we started in June 2016. June 2016, a group went, and then the UK partners, they went, and then we also made sure that we didn't go all at the same time because it would be too overwhelming for the community. And this was a community who was very welcoming, and who would get excited over visitors. So they didn't have qualms having their pictures taken. So anytime, so they would always smile, but we also didn't want to take advantage of that. um During the scoping trips, we even managed just how many foreigners would go, because they also were, they get very excited over seeing somebody who did not look like them. So we were quite mindful about that. And then, as to your question about results, I think that was something that we also struggled with. Especially, I'm not sure if the others had also encountered this, but we had some bit of conflict as well with some social development workers, saying, they even questioned, so what happens to the community after your research is done? How did the community benefit from this, from all the playing, from all the, yes, did you, and also because I think there had been past experiences where the community had really received dole outs from other organizations prior to our engagement with them. And so we also encountered those kinds of questions from some community members, but we always took them with a grain of salt. So every time, like especially towards the end of the project, when we did the evaluations, and so they would ask us, "Are you going to build us a new municipal hall, because one of our municipal halls was destroyed by flood?" And of course, we didn't have money for such kinds of things. But yeah, so I think we just have to be also very transparent to the group as to what our capacities are, and not promise them anything beyond what we can give and extend.
Thank you for that, Isa and Aya. We have four more questions from the Zoom chat. I want to call on Raquel Correa to give her question to all the speakers.
Hi, thank you to all the speakers. It was great seeing the use of culture and the arts with science and community development. I am curious about the aspect of community engagement. How was the process of entering the community, and the activities for the reception of the members of the community and the project as well?
I guess I could try answering that. I'll combine it also with Lynn's question. Lynn, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. You have a question here about how did you engage the elderly in your project? So I'll combine that with Raquel's question, because I think in one of my experiences, that was one of the most exciting, but also a little bit challenging. So I've had the opportunity to work with different elderly communities, different senior centers. I've always enjoyed it, but it's not a but. there was one moment where, this was in Flushing, New York. So in Flushing, New York, there's a senior center there that is particularly for Korean Americans, but most of them are Korean elders, and that's where they stay or they're bused to that area. As I do not speak Korean, my co-facilitator was the one who was leading the facilitation. So I'm going to speak from, as an outsider, what does it feel like to enter a community that, one, I hardly speak the language, and two, and two, we had to make adjustments in the middle. So I was supporting my South Korean colleague in her project here. Okay. In her project here. And so in terms of like entering the community, I think on that regard, for me as an artist who's completely an outsider, having those links, having the connection, having already that connection inside the senior center. So we were already vouched for by the person running the senior center. And then also having a partner who actually speaks the language and could help me with the language so that I could at least be understandable to a certain extent, was very helpful entering. And most of the time, because really, I could only observe, listen, and try to pick up the small things that I could pick up. It was a lot of listening. It was a lot of listening, a lot of reading body language, immediately being there if someone needed support with moving the chairs, and not a lot of speaking, which I think folks appreciated because our elders there had a lot to share. And the thing is, so my South Korean colleague went there and she wanted to talk about history. She wanted to talk about the experiences that these elders have gone through. We haven't thought of, I guess it was lack of consciousness on our part that if we talk about history, it's not only the history of their coming to America, but also their experiences of the war, their experiences of trauma. So those were some of the things when we realized, like, oh no, we're going to touch on those things, because like when we were almost there, like when we were about to ask about history, we could really see that there were some of the elders were like, no, we're going to step out of this. We don't want to talk about this. We don't want to remember those difficult moments in our lives. So in terms of that, yeah, so we had to change some of our program plans in the middle of it and focus more on games, focus more on the activities that they've already shown interest in, and the activities that gave them a lot of joy and made them laugh a lot. So that's one of the challenges, I think, when implementing projects, when you realize that it's not safe for the participants to engage, and that you as facilitator also isn't ready to engage them in terms of these psychological matters. So what happened in the end was we continued with the program. It was an arts program, but we also informed the person who was running the senior center that please check in with these people. They've expressed certain things, and so we just followed the protocol of like, if they feel that they need to be connected with psychological services, please don't hesitate to tell us, and we'll do the effort to connect them. So in terms of ethics, I guess there's, within practice, being able to spot those and acknowledging that, okay, I don't have the capacity for that one. Who can I connect this person with so that they can continue to be supported? There, do my other colleagues want to add to that?
I think it's about clarity of roles and positionality in the social, political, economic, and cultural hierarchies. Thank you.
Yes, I think that answers the question. The second question also coming from about ethical aspect of research, but may I call on Jane Dalian Gayamaso if she wants to add to her question? All right, maybe we can, okay, no addition. Now I want to call on Lynn. Although this was also tackled, any other clarifications based on your question? Lynn?
I think maybe just to add to the answers on what challenges did you face while implementing your projects. I think the whole project is a collection of challenges that are honestly reported and incorporated within the project, because as an experimental art project garden class, we didn't want to limit the exploration to people getting things. It's mostly people interacting with each other and learning with each other. So for example, one concrete challenge is that in one of the storms in May, we cannot repair the garden because all of us are indoors because of the pandemic. So one of our maintenance staffers that we compensated to help us maintaining it remotely kind of was able to sustain it for a while, but then he got transferred, and so we just let the garden go, and it is just part of the cycle anyway, because like somewhere between a farm and a jungle is a garden, and it is in the middle of being maintained but also being allowed to grow. So challenges became part of the project and also reflect the plight of our main collaborators, which is the Bakwit School. So the way that the project is plagued with some of those like supposedly difficulties and obstacles, it also kind of, in a way, when you listen to it, you are able to share in at least in theory the struggles of our collaborators.
Thanks for adding to that, Alfred. Now I want to call on
Can
Marina.
we have a gallery view, please? Because I want to see everyone. Amico, can you, yeah.
Marina, are you available for your question? Yes, thank you.
Sure. So this is to all the speakers. Thank you for your great presentations. I was so excited. And now I would like to know that any of your activity or program, project, whatever, has a collaboration with some local or private business sector. And if there is, what is their interest and how you create a win-win situation? Thank you.
I think somehow it's not really a business. I don't know if it's like a fully business sector, but the Ateneo University is a private institution, and as an employee of that, I felt that in a way the demand came from within, and also it became a win-win situation, because it's not just our student collaborators who were able to share and access knowledge, but also our own college students from the university. So I think your question might pertain to like a more corporate setup, because I think that's the more difficult thing to have a win-win situation. But I haven't experienced yet like much of that. But as a private institution, the school is both the collaborators, our collaborators, and the school kind of somehow had a clear understanding on what exchanges are to be made.
I think if I may add, Alfred, I'd say the consciousness that each of us are located within communities of practice. The communities of practice are interconnected, interlayered. And that's why I was saying earlier about what is very important for us as students, as researchers, as administrators, and maybe and partners with the community is the clarity of our own positionality, accountability and transparency about our own agendas, respectful of the other positionalities and interests and agendas. You know, I think, as you can see in their practice, you know, all of us are trying to craft that we work that there are positionalities and there are normative practices and the like that we have to. So I think, I think all of you, know this in your respective communities. But I think what's very important is that we're able to share with each other. I think this morning's presentations allow us to reflect on our own practices and to deepen perhaps some of our commitments. Thank you, Alfred, and thank you, Isa and Laura. I've been educated this morning.
Okay, thank you everyone. Thank you for adding to that, Doc Emma. I think we've gone through all the questions from the chat. So before we proceed to the closing remarks, may I call on each of the panelists or speakers to give their final messages for all the attendees and all those watching us from Facebook Live. Let's start with Miss Isa Mijares.
Thank you for this morning's exciting engagement, and um, as in all things that we do, let us continue to be kind to one another, to those that we work with, to our communities. I think that working with communities, one thing that it has taught me is the importance of follow through. And you have to make time for that. It's the importance of working with community is really in the relationships that have been nurtured through the projects and the activities that you do together. Being in community should not stop when the project is over. So I think that's something that we all have to be reminded of. It's all exciting while we're in the project, while we're doing all of these things together. But at the end of the day, when articles have been published, when all the deliverables have been sent out, have been forwarded to the funders and to all the collaborating institutions, we must never forget the humanity behind all of that. And that too is a challenge because, of course, all of us have our own lives, all of us have new projects to move on to. But I hope that all of you, all of us who are working here, will not forget to be human, in that we should continue all these relationships in one way or another. You know, even like for us, for North and Summer, it could be as simple as asking them how they were when it rains. Um, so even as simple as um checking up on them, even on Facebook messaging, is such an important facet of these community engagement. And so, yeah, just be kind, remain to be kind, remain to be human, and enjoy the relationships that you will nurture in your upcoming or your current projects. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you, Isa. Now I call on Laura Cabochan.
All right. I'm always very bad at these closing closing remarks. I feel like I am a very anticlimactic person, so I always feel like I'm going to drag my own presentation down at the end, but I will do my best. Uh, I think the only thing that I want to leave behind, apart from like thanking all of you for sharing your morning with me and being with all together here and playing with me, sharing some parts of you at the beginning of the presentation, is that thinking about ways to really make the table, because when we think about community work, community development, is how can, sorry, I am really being this, I'm distracted by the sound. Uh, whoever, thank you. All right, is to think about equitable tables and how do we make sure that everyone has access to the decision making table and will have their voice heard equitably in the process of any community development work or any community work or any interaction with human beings for that matter, that the table is equitable and everyone has space in it and is inclusive and kind. Um, so there's that one. So how do you make all those ways in? It could be arts, it could be whatever their interest is. And another thing that I'm thinking about is I'm going to quote someone. Unfortunately, I can't remember their name, but I do know that they're a researcher in New Zealand, and this person belongs to an indigenous group and works with indigenous groups as well. And she said that it's important to remember, or rather, this is something that an indigenous group said to outsider researchers, that if you're coming here to save us, don't bother. But if you recognize that your liberation is tied with mine, then let's work together. And I think that's the sort of attitude I personally want to carry out in the work that I do, to not see myself as, like, to recognize the differences that are there, but more so to recognize that we are all in this together, that if our boat is sinking, I am sinking with you. So how do we work together and not sink the boat? That was a very bad metaphor, so I'll stop now. So thank you very much for this morning. Alfred, I pass it to you.
Hi. So I think for everyone, I was really thank you so much for CCARPH for inviting all of us, including me, in this conversation. I think when I saw some of the faces and like a lot of us participating in Laura's party activity, it made me happy that I think you are the audience that I want art to somehow be able to reach. And I think something that I might advise is let's have like an acronym of like 3 C's of like curiosity, creativity, and care. So I mean, it's like usually a prop. It's the only thing that we have left because of in the project. But at least our collaborators are fine and somehow feel a little less endangered now. But yeah, practice those 3 C's, because I feel that in any project, whether it is in any field, if we practice those 3 kinds of mindsets or attitudes, when we approach it with care, with like curiosity and with creativity, we kind of are still able to relate to people in a human sense, in a holistic sense. And yeah, that's it. So thank you so much for listening, and I hope you're all staying safe, and I hope you learned a lot. And follow Save Our Schools network. So it's not as a collaboration. They also have their own digital platform, and they are also able to speak for themselves using those like platforms. So if you want to know more about the project, you can check out their page, but also mine, or you can email me if you want to talk more about Omehen. Thank you.
Thank you to all our speakers today. Thank you so much. And now welcome back Dr. Emma Porio, our main convener, to close our session today. Doc Emma. You're still on mute, Doc Emma.
Okay, okay. All right. I was in the other, I have another meeting going on with the National Resilience Council. So thank you very much. We had a very enriching, engaging, and very creative morning. And I think we have to thank the 3 young innovators. I'm really happy that, I'm very happy that, you know, we are able to do these things. When we planned this out how many weeks ago, as you know, this course was supposed to have been delivered in face-to-face. You know, when we were planning it in June, we basically thought, you know, we will bring all people to the communities that, you know, Isa was talking about, Laura was talking about in Valenzuela, and everyone, but we couldn't do it because, as I said, COVID have other plans. But I really think that the success is really because of everyone's generosity. This morning, I feel that I was privileged to share the life commitments of these three young artists. I feel privileged to have a glimpse into their talents and charisma and their engagement. So thank you very much. I will say that, you know, I was I was having a meeting with some of the officials yesterday, and I was saying, I'm very privileged that here in Ateneo, we can connect to so many other people, and they're very willing to share their expertise, share their commitments and their contributions for a better future. So I would say thank you in behalf again of Father Roberto Yap and our partners in the National Resilience Council and in the LGUs and communities. Thank you very much. I would like to thank the Asian Peacebuilders scholars for, you know, being able to be patient with us, to be with us in this journey. As I said, this is the second to the last. Tomorrow we have a closing plenary. We have somebody from University in Ohio and Cincinnati. We have also the National Resilience Council President, Tony Yolo Loizaga. So this has been an exciting journey, and I'd like to thank you for being with us. And I'd like, especially this morning, I feel that the collaboration that the sciences will have with the arts and humanities, I really felt that this morning it's flourishing, and we have a beautiful path ahead together, and we can plant flowers along the way, and we can smell the flowers together. So thank you very much. Thank you very much, and we'll see you. But I think Isa will close it at 10:30, and then we can have a private session, Ina, with the students, or no more na?
Yes, we can still have that. We still have time.
Okay, all right. Are there people who are not part of the class?
Yes, there are still other guests in the room. We can invite them to
Well,
tomorrow's
just
session.
let them, if they want to stay with us, just let them, okay? All right, Isa, Laura, and Alfred, I'm so happy. I will tell Father Bobby. Oh, Arete now and the arts will be with us in terms of supporting, because you know, I always tell, I was telling somebody that when I went to Arete and I told Yael about our 8 years